Today we are talking about congruent triangles. Now I'm not going to take the time currently to define triangles. I'm hoping you all know what they are. We have already defined it congruent this year, but I'm willing to bet that it's a good idea to go over it again. So congruent has a special character. It looks like so. An equal sign with a tilde on top. That's what that fancy little squiggle is called. I've had a student describe it as frosting, too, on top of cake. If that helps you remember it, great. Congruent, by definition, means the same size and the same angles on the same shape. In our case, they will all be triangles. Really quickly, we need to just briefly talk about how we notate congruency within a shape. So for example, if we have congruent sides of two triangles, I'm just going to go ahead and draw in two congruent triangles. We do tick marks through the sides to say that those two sides are the same length. Now within the same shape, if you want to say that two different sides are the same length, you just increase the number of tick marks you do. With congruent angles, there are two separate ways to do it. I don't really care which way you do. You will notice I do both interchangeably. So when we have two angles that are the same size, we either can put a tick mark through there to say they are the same, or we can increase the number of rings to differentiate them. So we could increase the number of tick marks to say that two separate angles are the same, or just increase the number of rings. Either way is fine by me. Now, two other things that we have to quickly talk about before we start talking about what congruent statements look like is the reflexive property and vertical angles. The reflexive property says if two shapes share a side, that side is congruent to itself. That's a lot of words for something that I hope when you look at it, you're like, well, no duh, Mr. Argyle. So for example, if we have two triangles, we'll draw our first triangle here. And we're going to go ahead and draw another triangle going the other way. I'm going to do it in blue to help differentiate that there are two triangles here. And suppose that they share this side, it overlaps. That side is congruent unto itself because it's the same side. So if we put letters in A, B, C, and D, we could say that side BC, it's a segment, so go ahead and put a segment on top, is congruent to side BC. A side is congruent unto itself. Similarly, let's go ahead and talk about vertical angles. I think it's easier to draw a demonstration here and then talk about what's happening. So vertical angles are when you have two straight lines that form two angles. Opposite angles are congruent. All right. That is as far as I want you to go in the notes today. At this point, please show your notes to the substitute to get the assignment. Excuse me. We're just go ahead and take a look at your homework. This is the very back page. I want you to, at the very top of this, put in big letters, order matters. You have to make sure that your segments are written in the same consistent order. So for example, consider the side NM. It's right here. We have to match this to make sure that we express it correctly. So for example, we went from N, the point away from the matching side, down to M. So to correctly notate this, we have to go from L down to F. So NM is congruent to LF. If you put FL on an assessment, I would mark it incorrect. You have to have the same order. Similarly, ML, we're starting from the point that's further away from the side over to the other one, is congruent to FN. We have to keep the same order. It matters. It's got to be consistent. It has to match. Sorry. And NL is, of course, congruent to LN or NL. Either would be fine. Which we know by using the reflexive property. Let's go ahead and talk about the next one. SAS. We'll talk more about what that means later. We have LK, so we're starting away, going down towards the center, is congruent to UK. Make sure you get the correct order. Then we go SK, is congruent to JK. Now, angles are tricky. You'll notice they have 3 letters here. The reason they have 3 letters is because we have to make sure that the angle is in the middle. So K, in this case, is in the middle. So we're going LKJ is congruent to UKS. That little shape right there means angle, which we know by using vertical angles. I'll leave the other 2 to be homework. Let's go ahead and just look right here. Now here, you get to set your own rules about which way are the congruency statements. There's already not half written for you. So make sure that your order is consistent. There are a couple ways that you could write it. You could write WZ, WZ, or you could write ZW. Either's fine, so long as you match. So in this case, I went ZW, meaning I have to go CP for the other one. You just have to be consistent, okay? Now, on the last triangles, we had to write 3 letters for here. Notice, do these triangles touch at all? They do not connect. So when your triangles do not connect, you can get away with writing something like this. So I'm looking here at angle R. There's only 1 slash through it. So therefore, I'm going to say angle R is congruent to angle D over here, because there's only 1 slash through it. You don't have to put 3 letters because they don't touch. If they did, you must write 3 letters. We'll spend a lot of time talking about this unit, so if it doesn't make sense yet, it will as we get deeper into our triangle congruences.